Hi, everyone. I'm Frank Mallicoat. I'm an anchor reporter for KTVU Fox 2 here in the San Francisco Bay Area. My guest is one of the creators of a new book called Book of Cultures, 30 stories for kids from all around the world that celebrate our differences. And in light of what is happening here in the States, the violence against Asian Americans, among other minorities, it is the perfect time to talk about acceptance. Let's say hi to one of the creators. That's Evi Traintafyllides, all the way from Cyprus. My goodness, you're a ways away. How are you?
I am fine. Thank you so much for having me, Frank. How are you?
I'm great. It's good to have you as well. Well, let's talk about the timing of the book. There's a lot going on, not only here in the States, but all across the world. Can you just talk about the impact you hope the book has at any rate?
Yeah, so the Book of Cultures, as you said, is a compilation of 30 stories from different characters from around the world. Each story follows what we call a body from a different country. And what the story is trying to achieve is two things. A, on the one hand, the storyline focuses on a universal theme that can be relatable to any child reading it. But on the other hand, there are lots of rich cultural specificities in that story, be it celebrations, traditions, and so on, for children to learn more about how different children live and think. Then following that story, we have a one-page illustration and then 2 pages of activities and fun facts about that country for children to immerse themselves more in the culture. The book is, I have it here, it's 120 pages long, as you said, 30 stories. And what we're really trying to achieve with this is to spark children's curiosity to explore and discover the world, to be open to different ways in which one can live or think, but at the same time to essentially understand that even though all these characters in the book live halfway around the world from them, they also don't want to go to bed when their parents tell them to, or they also might be jealous if a baby sister comes along. They also don't always like their food and want to whine a bit. So hopefully we want this book to be the first step towards embracing diversity.
Yeah. And I think it's important. There's so many differences, but you touched on them. There's a lot of similarities. We're all just human beings, right? With wants
Exactly.
and desires.
Exactly. And I think the important thing here is, you know, and I think the important thing here to note is that in essence, the place you were born in, your religion, your cultural heritage are only such a tiny fragment of who you are. But because in the beginning they are the most visible traits, we give them much more weight than we should. And it's the initial ways in which someone will judge you. But we need to change that way of thought. We need to teach children that cultural differences are just amongst that cultural differences are just a small fraction of a big set of differences and similarities you have with another person.
Tell us why it's so important to get kids at an early age to learn these types of things.
Yeah, so I think as we were talking before together, children aren't born with stereotypes. They don't have preconceived ideas of what should and shouldn't be. Everything is learned as they're growing and as they're developing and creating associations in their brains. And I always joke that, we give them so much fictional story, we give them so much fiction, and we give them all these stories with flying carpets and witches and mermaids, and they reach the age of 18 believing that a mermaid can actually exist, but then they've never heard of someone wearing a kippah, or they've never heard of a different religion than them, and then they seem that that's not normal. And I think at an age where children's brains are ready to take in ideas and anything that comes their way and accept it, it's a perfect opportunity for us to give them stories from all parts of the world and make them an inherent part of the way they learn to process information and in the way in which they learn to accept what they see around them.
Yeah. What kind of reaction have you gotten? we'll get the kids in a moment, but how about parents? Because I bet they love it and they're probably learning a thing or two as well.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think sometimes parents do want to teach their children about other cultures, and essentially they want to help raise kids that are open-minded, tolerant, and accepting. But sometimes they don't know where to start. They don't know how to start these conversations. And one of the things we've done recently actually is, alongside the book, we've launched a series of diversity lesson plans. And we have part of those available for free on our website if parents want to start having those conversations with their kids. And what these lesson plans are trying to give is a very simple framework to parents where they can start talking to their children about diversity, but not just culturally. In the beginning, we encourage them to start encouraging their children to look for differences and diversity in everyday things around them, like the food that they eat, the toys that they play with, to identify the differences between each toy and between each food, but also to identify that each is essential. And then from there, move on to cultural differences. So really to help their children wire their brains in a way where when they see something different and something new, to like wire their brains so that when they see something different or something new, they'll always encounter it with an open mindset and with positivity and curiosity. So yeah, I think that's something that parents are really trying to encourage their children to do, but sometimes have trouble with. But I think the other thing that's important here is that whenever something's happening, parents are always trying to be reactive, and they're always looking for resources to explain to their children how to respond to what's going on in the news, right? But I think you can't become tolerant and accepting overnight just by reading a book or by playing with a toy. It's a process. It's something that needs to be encouraged and developed daily. It needs to be an integral part of children's education. You know, they need repetition. They need to be exposed to a plethora of resources. So something that I would encourage parents is not just to condemn injustices in response to the news as a reaction, but to find ways to integrate these learnings on a regular basis.
What about the parents? How have they reacted to it?
To the book?
Excuse me, not the parents, but the kids themselves.
The kids? Yeah. I like, from what we've seen, like the kids really love the books. It's interesting to see how they will point out all these characteristics on bodies that we wouldn't even think of. So they won't notice the color of their hair. They'll just notice if they're wearing a cool shirt, right? And it's really interesting because you'll hear them say, oh, I really want to go to this place, or, oh, I have a new friend, it's a Juan Carlos from Peru, and I want to find out more about this specific dish. We've heard parents and families say that, they've looked up the countries that we talk about, and they've done more research, and that they're trying to find ways on how to incorporate new things that they learn about cultures in their day-to-day lives. But yeah, I think that the most outstanding thing with children is that when you see them in their most, pure form, even when they're going through the book, the things that we think or we assume that they will notice as like the differences that an adult is trained to look at, they won't look at those. They look at something completely different and something, super innocent and cute, which is essentially back to our point that, children aren't born with stereotypes. They look at the world in a very different way, and then we train them to look at the world in the way we want.
So they're really, I think the underlying theme is hope. I mean, for all of us, really.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's like diversity is something that, like acceptance, tolerance is something that we can all develop. There's no doomsday. We can, if we all want today to raise children that have an accepting and tolerant mindset, and if we all if we're all more careful in the vocabulary we use, in the way we stereotype people and situations around us, will raise a new generation of children that don't have these stereotypes, or that they have positive stereotypes.
So if people want the book, how do they get it?
The book is available on our website at worldwidebodies.com. It's also available in various independent shops across the country, at Nordstrom, and you can also find us on Instagram at Worldwide Bodies.
All right. Well, we wish you all the best, boy. And I think we all need a little bit of hope in our lives, and this is a good start, especially for young kids. Evi, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. Have a good day.
All the way from Cyprus. Evi, thank you so much. If you'd like more information, you can also go to newsnowfox.com. I'm Frank Mallicoat. Have a great day, everybody.